has been a while. I hope you're having a wonderful start to 2024, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that we can talk knitting together. Today is a very cold day here in Alberta, Canada. It's minus 30 plus wind chill, which if you have never lived anywhere cold, you might not understand what a difference the wind makes, but at minus 30 it can really drop the temperature so that it actually feels more like minus 35, and tomorrow should be below 40 degrees Celsius, so it's quite cold. I'm wearing my Lennox pullover, which is a design I released over a year ago, and it's made in 100% wool from shoot, I'm blanking on it, but all the information is in the pattern information on Ravelry or my website. It's a sport weight wool, and that makes it really comfortable yet warm, and this is probably my most worn knit of 2023, like in real life, the one that I wore out the most away from my house, so I felt like it was appropriate to wear it here for my 2023 wrap up. I will be wrapping up all my knits from 2023, but not my knits that I made, just the patterns that I released. But first I wanted to go through the knits that I finished since my last podcast, because there's been a few, there's been 5. So I wanted to catch you up on those before we just did a little run through of the patterns that I released in 2023. So since the last time I podcast, I have finished 5 things. The first one I hadn't even cast on the last time you saw me on YouTube. It is a little cardigan for my daughter. She needed a new cardigan to wear with a dress since she'd outgrown all of hers, and I always feel especially guilty when I purchase small girls cardigans, because I feel like I could make that easily enough, and I could add little details that make it special. So this is what it is. It is in black, so I know that's hard to see. It has ruffles all the way around the edges, and the cuff. So the front of the cardigan is kind of in a semicircle, so it increases to the center and then decreases again to create sort of a scoop. And this was made using my most favorite construction method, which is one that I have been sort of focusing on the last little bit of 2023 and the start of 2024. So it's increased rapidly along the shoulders so that you create a slope along the shoulders, and then you increase the sleeves and stop increasing along the shoulder line there, and you're also increasing along the neckline at the same time. So it's quite a few things going on, but that means that you can do a set in sleeve or a drop shoulder design completely as one piece, and you don't have to bind off or pick up stitches or work them in pieces and then seam them together. So it is a little bit of mental concentration at the start, but once you've finished your increases really for the neckline, then it becomes very intuitive and you just get a really nice fitted shoulder there. I will see if I can remember to put a picture in here of her wearing it. It's my youngest daughter, who is just about 6. She turns 6 next week, and she is definitely my most knit-worthy kid. So it's always a joy to knit for her because she actually wears it and loves it, and she's My other kids are often excited that I'm knitting for them, but then they lose interest after the project's finished, but not my youngest. Another thing that I did was that I added some ribbing right before the ruffle, so it actually holds on to her wrist and doesn't flop around. Yeah, and it's long sleeves. It goes right down to her wrist and then fits nicely over a dress. So she wore it Christmas Eve to our church service, and she's been wearing it ever since with whatever outfit she chooses. I try not to be too particular about knits in this house because I feel that children fit them for such a short period of time. If they love it and they want to wear it out to play in the yard, I'm totally fine with that. And I'm just happy that it gets worn for the season that we have it. And also wool is really good at stain removal. Like wool repels stains, and it's really easy to get a stain out. So we're not too particular about it here. The yarn I used was a worsted weight. I don't remember the company name. I feel like it was Lana Grossa, but I'm not 100% sure. It was called Asian, and it was a mix of wool and acrylic. And they come in 50-gram balls, and I used, I think, 6 or 7. So it used quite a bit of yarn actually for being a cropped sweater. But she is quite tall and long-limbed, so I really needed to keep adding length to the sleeves. And the ruffles also added quite a bit of fabric. They eat up quite a bit of yarn. Another feature that I added was the buttons. So I wanted it to be done up, but I didn't want you to be able to see like a button band. So I actually put the buttons on the inside of the ruffle. So the buttons are on the inside of the ruffle, and the button holes are along the ruffle edge as well, not actually into the cardigan itself. And so when you do them up, it actually kind of hides the buttons. And these were buttons that I found at my nearest yarn store, which is Cottage Knits in Fort Saskatchewan. Paula there is very helpful, and it's a sewing store but also a knitting store. Yeah, so then it doesn't show really unless you're really looking for it, and you can just see the ruffles. This is not a pattern, and I do not plan to make it a pattern. Yeah, it was just for my daughter. Another thing that I knitted really quickly is this small towel. I had this idea to make like an exercise towel because I go to hot yoga and I always have a towel to wipe my face, but it's just like a generic green microfiber towel. It's not very exciting. And I thought I could like dress up my yoga mat with a pretty towel, and then I want to put tassels along the edge of it. This was just made with a cotton acrylic blend that I had in my stash. It's around a worsted weight, and I held it double, which made a really quick knit. And then it just has stockinette bobbles, garter, and some lace. So I thought it would be a good pretty exercise towel, or it could be like just a regular hand towel, or I don't know if it would work really well for a tea towel, but I think as a hand towel it would work well. I think I might develop that into a pattern if there's some interest in it. Another large item that was finished in December is the baby blanket that I was working on before. This is worked in the same way as my other blanket patterns from the center out. You start with a small area worked flat, and then you pick up stitches around the edges. And this one I kind of went a little crazy on, so I tried to include all these different stitch patterns. So you're kind of doing something new all the time, which is good, but I think I probably would have liked a little bit more stockinette. And then it finishes off with this feather and fan lace, which when you block it out and pin the edges, you get a nice scallop on the end. So this I was inspired to knit because a new little baby was born and I wanted to make something for her. She was born at the end of December, so we finished just in time. I say we because my mom actually finished the last little bit of the lace she did from this, pretty much this color change here to the end. So it can be used as a baby blanket, and I did it in superwash yarn because of that reason, or you could use it as a hap shawl. So you could fold it in half and it becomes a triangle shawl, or you could wear it like a traditional shawl, or you could use it as like a throw blanket on your couch. Yeah, it's really pretty. A lot of work. It's in fingering weight, so it's a lot of stitches to knit, but yeah, I think the result is worth it. And I'll show you the back, what the back looks like. And yeah, people like to see your floats. It's my floats. It's very neat on the back too. I don't mind that reverse side. So I just called for test knitters for that design. So if you are in my test knit call list on my on my website or my email newsletter list, then you should have got a call through email. Check your inbox, and if you haven't got it but you would like to be a part of it, you can email me or write me a message on my Instagram account. Another one that I hadn't even cast on last podcast were these slippers. These are Joe's Perfect Slipper Socks by Cozy Up Knits. And my daughter had put on her Christmas wish list that she wanted slippers. And then I just couldn't bring myself to buy a pair of polyester cheaply made slippers when I have so much yarn available. So I just knit these up for her stocking, and she was thrilled with them. And she is not very knit worthy, but she has been wearing these. They haven't been blocked or anything, and I probably won't, although they could. I find sometimes superwash yarn is kind of crunchy until you wash it the first time, so I could do that, but I don't know what this yarn is. It was given to me from my aunt's stash, but it is like a worsted weight, variegated kind of yarn. And so the Joe's Slipper Socks is supposed to use fingering weight sock yarn held double, but I just use this worsted weight, so I don't think it has nylon in it. I'm not sure how long these will stand up, but they're just for slippers in the house, so it should be okay, except for those times that they love to run across the floor and slide. Then it might wear out the bottom, but we'll see. My final finished object since last podcast is my garden party pullover. It was actually finished at my last podcast, but I was really not feeling the neckline. I had it in brioche and I just didn't like how it looked, so I actually cut it back, which you can see here, instead of ripping it out, because ripping out is just slow. So I just cut it back and weaved in the ends and picked up and worked it in one by one rib. And It fits much nicer. I like how it is better than the brioche, which kind of like flipped forward. And yeah, this is a pattern that's coming out this month, January 18th. Designed to hold fingering weight double. You could do it in DK or worsted as well if you match the gauge. Oops. And then you would need half the yardage that I recommend. Yeah, so if you have advent calendars from December or lots of sock knitting scraps, this would be a good one for you. And it's again worked in the same construction method where you increase rapidly along the shoulders and then you stop increasing there and increase along the sleeves. It creates a nice shoulder fit without too much fabric in the underarms. Okay, that's it. That's all the objects that I've finished. I have lots of whips. 3 of them are related to secret patterns that I can't share with you. And I have a lot of ideas for 2024, just not sure on the time available to make them happen. So I thought I would go through a little summary of the designs, the knitwear designs that I released in 2023. I released 11 patterns. 3 of them are blankets or shawls, 1 cardigan, 1 pullover, 1 cardigan vest, 1 full vest, 1 t-shirt, 1 tank top, and 2 accessories or accessory sets. I was kind of surprised that it was only 11. I usually shoot for 12 patterns a year, so 1 a month, but I did do more full garments, and I think that probably had to do with the slower pace of release. So I'll start off with the blankets. One of them I don't have with me. It's the Seed Star blanket, and it was knit. More than half of it was knit by my mom, so I let her. I didn't let her. I gave it to her and asked her to keep it. So it is at her house, looking quite beautiful. I'll try and find a picture if I can. And the other blanket I released is the Field Edge blanket, which is this one. It's knit in a lace weight 100% wool yarn at a looser gauge, so it makes this like really drapey but warm fabric. And again, I cannot remember what yarn I used. It's the same company as this one. It's a Bio Shetland yarn. Yeah, in 3 different colors. And again, you can use it as a like shawl. Quite warm and cozy. And I really like that there's no stitch pattern hidden in here, that you really get to see all the extensive lace work that you did at the end. And I'm also really happy with the color changes there in the stripes. And the color change at the end with the grays was an accident, but I actually was really happy with it in the end. So a design that you have not seen that was released is the Ridgeline shawl. And I'm sorry that it's very wrinkled. It was like balled up in my knit closet, but it is an eyelet and garter and stockinette shawl worked from the point all the way to the long edge here. And it's edged in I-cords. I did a interesting way of casting on so that the cast on is edged by I-cords also, and the color changes are in the eyelets, so it makes a nice striping effect. And I did this sample in Smash Knits some sock yarn. I think it was the color Sunflower and Earl Grey or something, but I don't know if she still has those colors. And the reason you haven't seen this is because it was actually for an in-print magazine. This was my first ever time being in print. And it was in this Knit Now, which is a UK publication. And the one that I did here is actually in different colors. There I am. So that was pretty fun to be in an in-print magazine. So unfortunately you cannot get this pattern unless you have that issue, which is, I think it's 73. No. Doesn't even have a number of the issue, so yeah, sorry about that. So that's the Ridgeline shawl. Oh yeah, so I released one cardigan, and it was the Cardi, which is actually like the grandparent or the parent of the Garden Party Pullover. So that's why the Garden Party is called that, was because this is the Cardi. And then Lynn, my lovely tester and also YouTube watcher, suggested that because I was complaining that I didn't have a name for this one because I couldn't call it the Cardi Pullover or the Cardi Pullover, because it's not, there's hardly any garter stitch in it, and it's not a cardigan. So she suggested Garden Party. Sort of sounds the same, and I loved it. And my sample kind of looks like spring-like and gardeny. So this is the Cardi, and it is also designed to use up in green weight scraps, but it is entirely worked flat for the fronts and the back and in garter. And it is the same contiguous method where you increase the shoulders first, but instead of splitting for sleeves and then increasing the sleeves, you just split your fronts and backs and work those down to your armhole depth. And then you pick up your sleeve stitches and work those in the round. And I did regular stockinette for those. And you can just cast on and work those in the round and seam after, which is what I did, and I found that much easier and less cumbersome because this is really, really heavy. And it comes with afterthought pockets you can add in, which I always intended to add a second one on the other side, but I just haven't managed it. The nice part about the afterthought is that then you can work your cardigan and get your colors how you want them, and then you can stick your pockets in after the fact. It's worked with a brioche collar band. It's not a button band because it has no buttons, and cuff as well. And I did brioche because I just really like the look of it, but there's also instructions for 1x1 ribbing instead of the brioche. And yeah, it's really oversized, really cozy, uses up all your scraps. You could easily clean out a significant stash drawer with this pattern alone. And you can use scraps for your color band, but I used all one color of Sassy Strings in Blackberry. And I think if you use light to medium tones in your sweater and then use a uniform button band color, it really kind of ties everything together. It gives it some anchoring and continuity. The only pullover that I released this year is the Mountain Pullover. It is a circular yoke color work sweater, and it was made in Brooklyn tweed shelter in the color cast iron and pure. Brooklyn tweed provided the yarn for this design based on a proposal I sent them, and it was a great knit. It was a hard design because the color work at the bottom of the yoke means that you can't make adjustments to the length or depth of your yoke very easily. So testers and I really had to work out some things to try and get it so it's a more accessible design for more people. It has color work, but then just some garter ridges, which I think just it's a nice way to transition between those bands of different stitch patterns. It also has corrugated ribbing on the mock neck and the cuffs, but nothing on the bottom there. I have a few vests, one cardigan vest and one full vest. So I'll start with the cardigan vest. This is the Vintage Vibe vest. And again, it's the same method where you increase rapidly along the shoulder so that you can get a set and sleeve vest without having to do it in pieces. It's edged simply throughout with just a band of stockinette that rolls a little bit and some garter on the edges. There's no button band. Obviously I don't enjoy knitting button bands because I don't think I've ever designed one yet. Maybe that's the reason I don't want to release or work up that ruffled cardigan because it has buttons. This one was in Cascade Eco, which is a really nice yarn. I really like it. I would like a sweater in it. It's smooth but woolly and warm, not itchy. So that was my first sample, and then I wasn't quite thrilled with how the neckline was sitting here on this edge, so I worked up another one and adjusted the pattern. So this was the other sample. And I do not remember at all what I knit this out of. I feel like it was some, oh, it was, I know what it is. It's Longway Homestead. They're Shetland. And it's the worsted weight yarn. And I just did it all in one color instead of having a border of a different color there. And it's just a simple, clean lined cardigan vest that you can throw over a button-up shirt, or yeah, I thought it looked very 70s when I was knitting it, and I was watching Daisy Jones and the Six at the time. And Brittany from Crux Fibers suggested the name Vintage Vibe vest, and I loved it. And yeah, so that's it. That's the nice sit and sleeve armhole, which gives you a nice fit around your armpit. And then I did a full vest, and this was also for an imprint publication. This is the Villa vest. And this was done in Farmer's Daughter Fibers. Something starts with an R, Restoration, something like that. It's a thicker yarn, like an Aran, heavy worsted to Aran weight, and it's worked in from the bottom up in pieces and seamed, and the neckline's picked up, and it's done in twisted ribbing, but from the reverse side, so that when you fold it over, the reverse is shown. So you work the cowl neck, you pick it up right side, but then you turn it around and work wrong side facing, so that you can do the twisted ribbing without the hassle of purling through the back loop. So it's mostly garter. It has some twisted stitches along the shoulder lines there, and there's no edging. It's just a slip stitch selvage so that it looks nice. And that was as part of Taproot magazine. It's a beautiful publication, and this is an especially beautiful issue. There's my vest. My friend took the pictures for me. So that I didn't have to send the sample, I just sent them the pictures. So unfortunately you can't get the pattern except through copies of the magazine, but you can get the magazine. This is issue 57. I don't know if you can see that part. On their website. Not cheap, but it is available. And yeah, Taproot, I have a subscription to Taproot, and it's just a beautiful magazine. Like, you can feel the materials just gorgeous, and all the stuff they have in it. It's like a cooking, making, dreaming kind of magazine. It's really beautiful. I was very honored to be a part of it. I had one t-shirt that I released last year, and it was the pure top. It's really hard to show you. Again, it's wrinkled because it's in linen, so sorry about that. I did not have enough time to like really prep for this with steaming things and whatnot. But again, it is a contiguous drop shoulder this time design, and yeah, so you work the shoulders, then split front and back and work down and then join again. So really simple, really easy to try on this way, whereas drop shoulders are usually not that easy to try on while you go. Has a simple garter stitch edging on everywhere. And yeah, makes an easy fit, oversized. And that was in Sanisline yarn, which is a linen viscose rayon, maybe. I don't know, it has a lot of different fibers in it, but it's like a DK weight. And then the last things I did, one of them I don't have because it was for another publication of Knit Now, and I sent the sample off and I didn't ask for it back because I would have had to pay for overseas shipping, and it was just a pair of fingerless mitts, so I didn't really value them enough to get them back. But it was based on this swatch, which is color work with purl stitches included. So I can't really say much about that. And then my last and final design from 2023 was the Greenway collection, which is a hat, mitten, and cowl set that I released for Christmas. And I think that might be my new tradition, is to release an accessory set around December 1st every year. Yep, it's just some 2x2 cables and twisted stitches. All of these are 2x2 cables. And yeah, I think, and that's it. That's all my designs for 2023. Some highlights from 2023. I thought I would just summarize the year for my business and how I felt about it. It was a really great year for my business. It was full of excitement and creativity. I'm a little bit sad that I only released 11 patterns because I had so many more ideas that I just was not able to pursue and get towards any kind of publication stage. So that makes me a little bit sad, but at the same time then I just have an abundance of ideas for this year if I'm able to get them out. Some of the top highlights were seeing myself in print. Kind of blows my mind that that's a possibility for me, is to be paid by other people to print my designs. So that was pretty exciting, and there will be more exciting news for 2024 for sure. Having my yarn sponsored by Brooklyn Tweed for the Mountain Pullover. This one. Brooklyn Tweed, especially Jared Flood, was one of the few design companies that I saw and was interested in knitting. So when I started knitting, all I saw were things made out of so in North America, this knitting scene 20 years ago was highly acrylic, and the style was just not me. Like a lot of color, a lot of like seaming things together, and not great fit. And then Jared Flood came along and I was like, actually I would knit those, and I loved everything that they came out with, all accessories, and they came out with garments. And my very first garment that I knit was Tinder by Jared Flood, and it turned out beautifully, just too big, which was my own fault because I didn't check my gauge while I was knitting it. But my mom has that sweater and she still wears it, and it's beautiful after all these years. Yeah, so to have Brooklyn Tweed know who I was, sponsor yarn for a design, kind of blew my mind a little bit. So that was a huge highlight for me. Another highlight is finding my favorite construction method, that contiguous top-down seamless or set and sleeve or drop shoulder construction. It really gets me fired up. I'm so excited for all the possibilities that you can do with that design feature, and yeah, there will definitely be more patterns using that construction method in this coming year. And finally, I wanted to say that knitters have been my highlight this year. I am just so blessed to be part of an amazing community of knitters here online and also in real life. I've had fantastic test knitters. I cannot complain at all about any of the test knitters I've had. They've just been given me so much joy, so much encouragement, so much help. Just an amazing group of people, and they have definitely been a highlight. And I don't know, if I hadn't had the knitters testing for me, if I'd had a different kind of group that wasn't as encouraging, I don't know that I would still be doing this. Yeah, just the online community here on YouTube and on Instagram, and responses to my email newsletter are they're just the best. And real life connections I made to this year through my local yarn stores, through yarn events have been really special, and meeting test knitters in person just never gets old. I think that's all I have for today. I need to go rest my voice. I can tell the air is dry. I hope that you have had a wonderful start to the year and that you are super fired up about all the things you want to make this year. If you have a favorite design of mine from last year, I'd love to hear what that is. If there's anything that you're keen that I design this year coming up, I'd also love to hear that. So make sure you sign up for my newsletter if you'd like to test for things in the future, and also sign up for it to hear about pattern releases coming up. The Garden Party Pullover is coming out January 18th, and I always give the pattern for a really good discount, but only for the first weekend. So I release on Thursdays, and then by Sunday the discount is finished. So I do mention it on my Instagram, but I know that most of you do not see those posts. So make sure that you sign up for my newsletter. I will put the link down below in the description box, and then you will get a direct notice that that is on sale when it releases. So have a great week and weekend coming up, and take care. Bye.